All right, if we are live, and I believe we are. So, hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 4 of our All Pro Sports podcast here in 2023. Tonight, we have 4 special guests here joining us here tonight: Alex Christ, Griff Barlow, Billy McGee, and my cousin Ben Adams joining us here tonight. Gentlemen, what an incredible wild card weekend, and certainly we'll discuss the divisional round matchups. But before we do anything, I first have to congratulate Billy McGee's Georgia Bulldogs taking down TCU 65-7, an absolute shellacking in the national championship game, consecutive national championships. I have to give the floor first to Billy. How was that feeling? And I heard that you went to the championship parade last weekend.
Oh yeah, the feeling of the game, that was the most fun I've had watching a football game ever. Just from the second it started, there was like one play where you were like, "Oh, TCU can maybe be in this," but it was just dominance other than that. And it was so fun to watch as a Georgia fan. And then the parade was great too until the next day with the tragic news that Chandler LaCroix, who's a recruiting staffer, and Devin Willock, who was an offensive lineman, that died in a car accident the night before.
Oh man.
Yeah, which was it's really sad that I think it was like 3:45 or something, or like around 3 in the morning. They got in a car accident and they had both passed away, and I think there were 2 other people in the car. So it was a great celebration that turned into mourning pretty quickly throughout the entire like fan base and all of college football community. So just prayers to their families.
Absolutely.
Through this, which I believe I saw Devin Willock's dad. He had another son like years ago. It was Devin Willock's half brother who had also died in a car accident. So just prayers up to that family, especially having experienced that twice.
Absolutely. Certainly our thoughts and prayers are with the Georgia Bulldogs family, and certainly trying to see how their families will recover from this. But certainly it's going to be an interesting, way for Georgia to hopefully honor them before the next season begins here. But going back though to the wild card weekend last weekend, my co-host last night, Mac Baltez, being a huge Cincinnati Bengals fan, he and I certainly had a lot to talk about there. But this I'm going to defer though to our one co-host, Ben Adams, being the big Buffalo Bills fan, kind of seeing how the Bills played against the Dolphins and Cincinnati took down Baltimore last week. Ben, who do you kind of give the advantage to going into that pivotal divisional round weekend game between those two this weekend?
Oh man, I don't know. After the first 15 minutes of the Bills game, I was feeling the same way about that Georgia game. It was just a complete blowout, and it felt like it was going to be a walk in the park. But obviously, things turned around quickly after that. Man, it just feels like if the Bills are clicking on all cylinders, I honestly don't think anyone can beat them. The problem is they can't piece together 60 consistent minutes. So I don't know. It depends if they can, not turn the ball over in the red zone. One thing that I will say about Josh Allen is you're going to get turnovers with him. Like just the way he plays, he's high risk, high reward. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing to have turnovers, but obviously what's bad is when he has dumb turnovers in the red zone. And so I think if he can control himself in the red zone and, not turn the ball over, I think the Bills should be favorites, especially at home, but you just never know. I mean, the other thing is the Bengals O-line is so hurt. I think they're missing 3 starters right now. So that's got to be an advantage to the Bills, but that's where having Von Miller would have been a huge game changer. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm feeling super confident. I guess I think we're going to win, but I'm not. I walked into this Miami game looking past them, which maybe was a mistake, but I'm certainly not looking past the Bengals.
No. It's going to be interesting to see. Certainly as I mentioned to Mac last night, it'll be the 3rd overall meeting between Cincinnati and Buffalo in the postseason. Both previous meetings were won by the Cincinnati Bengals MVP quarterbacks Ken Anderson in 1981, taking down Joe Ferguson in 88. Boomer Esiason outplayed Jim Kelly when they met in the AFC Championship that year. But moving on to our other co-host here, Griff Barlow, kind of seeing how the other three matchups, or the other two matchups that happened this weekend between Minnesota and, of course, my New York Giants coming out with a huge win against them, but also with the other big storylines as well. Jacksonville's comeback against the Chargers, and I was just kind of wondering, Griff, about your thoughts on the other wild card matchups and what we could probably expect to see from Jacksonville, the Giants, as well as Dallas Cowboys taking on the 49ers this weekend.
Yeah, so to address the Jacksonville game, obviously that's like a crazy performance we saw in the second half by them, like unprecedented. And I just thought it was pretty ridiculous on both ends of the ball. Excuse me, for the Chargers. Like, we saw how the Chargers really just got stalled like almost every drive, and they couldn't really get much out of it. And people are giving so much flack to Herbert, and really, I'm seeing so much slander coming down on top of him right now. But you have to think, like, their defense gave up 20 or 30 points in the second half, and I guess and you can blame the offense as much as you want, but it's just as bad on the defensive side as well. So, just to address the Jacksonville game, I thought that was just unbelievable, and it's reminiscent of the Colts game earlier this year with the Vikings and what we saw with that game. Really, I think it's two teams that probably we won't see in the Super Bowl, but we'll have to see. We don't know, or definitely, can't be. It would have to be the Jags and not the Chargers. I don't think we see the Jags in the Super Bowl, but I guess we'll have to see. But moving on to the Giants game, I thought that was a great effort by the Giants. I can't say I was super surprised, even though they were on the gambling side of things, that they were the underdog. Just the way the Vikings have been so inconsistent all year. They've been winning super close games, and it's just kind of been I think everyone's just waiting for their time to really just collapse and show their true colors, which I think is what we saw on Sunday. But overall, I thought we saw a pretty good performance, especially from Daniel Jones, and it looks like he's playing himself into a no contract and into a starting role for next year for sure. So overall, pretty exciting this weekend. But I think what we got, I thought I got what I about expected, other than the second half of that Jags game for sure.
Certainly, it's going to be very interesting with divisional round matchups here. And actually, what we're going to go ahead and do right now is we're actually going to go ahead and just make our picks. I wanted to quickly throw this out. I'm certainly that I don't know if you guys caught this or not, but when I posted on Facebook for my predictions last year when I first started our podcast going on a year or two, I was 6-0 in the wild card matchups last year, and I was 6-0 again this year with my wild card picks as well. So I'm 12-0 going into hopefully next year can make it 18-0. But let's go ahead and make our selections for divisional round here. First, starting out with the first game on Saturday. Who's the first matchup? I was just trying to pull that up. Who was the first matchup on Saturday?
Looks like the Jags.
First one's Jaguars and Chiefs. So are we kind of all in agreement on Kansas City for this one?
Yeah, I would say so. I don't really see Jacksonville pulling that out, especially not in Arrowhead.
Hey, but you can't ignore that Trevor Lawrence has never lost a game on Saturday ever.
That's true. That is true.
That was an incredible statistic when I saw that. That was incredible to figure that out there. But I was talking to Mac about this last night. Certainly seeing how Kansas City has just seemed to just have another quiet year, 14-3. Travis Kelce, Smith-Schuster, and that offense just seems to not miss a beat. But the one thing I was saying to him as well, just seeing how Isaiah Pacheco has done for Kansas City over the last few weeks, I said to him, if Kansas City can get 1,000-yard back behind Mahomes eventually, I just don't know if Pacheco would be that guy, but that offense just seems impossible to stop. The only thing that just kind of seems is just if they stop themselves. And I just don't think that Peterson can match up with them, on Saturday when they play against each other in Arrowhead.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if any of you other guys want to take it, you can go ahead. I was just going to say that maybe the Jags can keep it close, but I don't see the Jags winning that game, truthfully.
No way.
Yeah, there's no way unless they can. I don't even know. I don't even know how they win that game. Honestly, like
I don't either. Yeah,
I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. So we'll see. Would be in agreement here for Kansas City for our pick in this one. Next one, I got to go giddy on this one between the Giants and Eagles. Seeing that performance and seeing how Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley looked, I'm pulling for the Giants to pull off a second straight upset over Philadelphia. I could see some perhaps disagreement in the ranks here, but don't be afraid to show your true colors. Who do you guys have for this matchup?
I don't hate that. I think the Eagles will win, but they didn't finish the season. I can't remember how they do with Hurts in that last week. I think they must have won, right?
They were pretty average, but they won.
The Giants. I mean, Giants played most of their second and third string guys.
Oh, you're right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, dating back, last 3, 4, maybe even 5 weeks, the Eagles have not really been that good. Granted, they didn't have Jalen Hurts for most of it, but I wouldn't be all that confident if I was an Eagles fan. And on the flip side, the Giants seem to be pulling it together at the right time right now. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't shock me. I can't say I'm expecting it, but it wouldn't shock me is where I am.
Yeah, I agree. I think at this point in the season, it's going to come down to a close game, in my opinion. I don't think there's a way that we see the Eagles get dismantled. And I think the same way for the Giants at this point. And we're going to see everything we get. I mean, we're going to get everything from the Giants this week is what I'm trying to say, is that there's no way that the defensive side of the ball, I think, will struggle as much, but it really will come down to the offensive side. And if we can get Jones and Barkley to get the way that they've been at times this year, I think that there's going to be some fireworks there.
Yeah, I'd have concerns with the Giants receivers playing against two very good corners that are on the Eagles with Bradbury and Slay.
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
My pick was that I would say Eagles there. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Eagles too.
Eagles as well. Ben, what do you got?
I'm going Eagles as well.
Okay, so 3-1 there for that one there. The way that I kind of slice this game is kind of how I've seen the Giants do for some of their games this year, whether it was against Green Bay or even a little bit in Minnesota last week. Just try to really limit the possessions of Philadelphia's offense, kind of what they did at Green Bay. And certainly I know Minnesota put up 24 points against them last week, but again, it just kind of seemed like another empty calorie game for Kirk Cousins, especially with that last minute blunder that he had with that throw to TJ Hawkinson. I just, kind of going back to peg that question I was talking with Ben and Billy on Christmas and New Year's, I just don't know how Minnesota's future rides with Kirk Cousins now after, certainly an impressive performance nonetheless, but just not good enough to take down Daniel Jones and the Giants when they played each other last week.
Yeah.
It's kind of the story of his career, not quite good enough.
True. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see the Giants put up a fight, though. Honestly, the last thing I want to see is a boring Saturday slate of games.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm. All right, so let's move on to the two Sunday games. Of course, the first one being that huge one that we just discussed a few minutes ago with the Buffalo Bills taking down the Cincinnati Bengals. And certainly speaking from Mac's point of view, Mac, of course, being the Bengals fan, was going to be pulling for the Bengals here. Ben, you're going to kill me for saying this. I'm leaning Bengals myself in this one as well. So if you text Sam and Eli and say Alex is going against our team, just you can throw me under just the bus if
just
you
send
want
that in our group chat right now.
Yeah, I'm going to. Yeah, I mean, again, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't have a lot of confidence in the Bills, but I will say, I mean, if the Bills play mistake-free football and play well, there's no way they're going to lose this game. It's just the Bills will beat themselves if they lose this game, in my opinion. I could see it being a shootout like the Bills-Chiefs game last year, just back and forth, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Maybe we'll see another overtime game and see that overtime rule tested.
That's right.
Yeah, I think. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm done. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was just gonna agree with you. I mean, I think I've been going a little back and forth on this. I think the Sunday games are a lot harder to pick, in my opinion. But I think what we're gonna look at is really who's gonna be less prone to turnovers. I think what Ben was kind of alluding to earlier, that Allen is prone to making mistakes on, with the ball, whether he's lobbing it downfield or whether he's running into a group of defensive linemen. I think that we see those mistakes from him sometimes. But then again, there's the risk reward factor. So we may end up just seeing a Josh Allen clinic. So I'm not really too sure. I'm going to give my official pick as Bengals, just for the fact that they've been rolling, especially in the second half of the season. Even though they didn't look fantastic versus the Ravens, but that Ravens defense isn't something to really, like that's maybe one of the best defenses in the league, if not the best. So it's not, I don't think that's anything you can slight them for. But like I said, my official pick is going to be Bengals in that game.
Yeah, I'm probably going to lean the same way for what you said earlier. It's like the Josh Allen is prone to mistakes and turnovers. I think the Bengals are just better at protecting the football. And neither team played great last week. It's just I think the Bengals are better at protecting the football and not turning it over than the Bills are.
Yep.
The one thing I will say that I think we're forgetting, going into last week, Josh Allen had thrown 17 touchdowns and 1 interception in his entire playoff career. So he historically has been very good in the playoffs and protected the ball. And honestly, last week, his turnovers, the 1 interception kind of bounced off of the chest of a receiver. I wouldn't really say that one was his fault.
Right.
The fumbles, probably at least one of them he was on him. But I didn't think he played recklessly last week. I think it was a bit more of bad luck. I don't know. The thing about Josh Allen, and this is probably the same for Burrow, but when it's a big game, he is in the zone, and there's no one who I would rather have be my quarterback in a big game than him. Like, no one gets more into it.
I would take Mahomes.
Well, I guess. I don't know. I mean, last year it was a toss-up between the two. I wouldn't even say that. I think you could argue Josh Allen outplayed Mahomes, honestly.
Oh, you could, yeah. I'm not saying that you couldn't argue that. It's just I personally would take Mahomes over him because he's just the best quarterback in the world.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We'll see. I'm just saying if Josh Allen goes out, throws 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, it wouldn't shock me.
Oh, I don't think it'd shock anybody.
Yeah. So, all right.
Probably my last sense on this matchup gone on the first Sunday matchup here. Certainly talking with Mac last night as well. Certainly, he said how Eli Apple was burned in that Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals game last weekend. But certainly, I just kind of think that's going to be an interesting test as well between Allen and that Bengals defense. Really, outside of really Trey Hendrickson on their defensive line, they really have no Pro Bowlers on that linebacker or secondary unit, but that is just a nice, solid defense that Cincinnati has going into that matchup against Buffalo next week. So it will be interesting to see, if who blinks first between Burrow or Allen, and see, who either commits the first turnover, or maybe see if both teams have a clean game like the Giants and Vikings had when they had no turnovers in their matchup in the wild card round.
Yeah, I think kind of to add to your point, we're not seeing as much production in terms of all pro or Pro Bowl type numbers from the defensive side of the ball there, especially in that front seven. But I think you're starting to see the staple pieces of DJ Reader. He's been pretty good in the interior D line, and then Jermaine Pratt's really come through, a guy from North Carolina, and he's been one of their staple pieces since he's been drafted a few years ago. And I think he's continued to improve a lot to kind of be that guy for them in the middle there. But they're definitely gonna have to rely more on their corners this week, and hopefully they don't get burned. I mean, Eli Apple kind of has a history of that, but hopefully we'll see Bates and Bell step up a little bit and help them out in the back half of that secondary.
We'll be interested to see for who comes out on top there, and of course, whoever would win against Kansas City and Jacksonville would be their result for AFC Championship game. But last one to pick here for the divisional round weekend is, of course, a big one between the 49ers and Cowboys, a rematch of last year's wild card weekend. As much of a disaster of an ending that was for Prescott and those guys, but certainly a nice performance against Tampa Bay last weekend. Before we kind of get into some speculation in a little bit here, but certainly we'll see kind of what happens here. I've been under the Brock Purdy, curse, you could possibly say. He has just been an incredible athlete, and seeing how he performed against Seattle last week before the defense kind of took over the second half of that game for Seattle. I'm going to be rolling with the 49ers here with my pick in that divisional round matchup to close out the weekend.
I am also taking the 49ers and the points. I think they're going to win at least by 10 points. I think the 49ers D is so good. Prescott is so turnover prone that if he turns the ball over 2-3 times, I mean, this game is going to be over for sure. So that's what I think. I think last week's Cowboys was just like a little deception, get everyone excited for this week, get Jerry Jones all riled up. But the real Cowboys will be back next week or this weekend.
Okay, well, I'm going to bite the bullet, and hopefully I'm not wrong. We'll see. I'm going to take the Cowboys here. Probably just going to get duped like I have been for the last 15 years of watching them in the playoffs. But after watching them just dismantle the Bucks the way they did, and I mean, they're like we were talking about during the game, their kicker just can't not being able to hit an extra point. That's like almost a demoralizing thing just to watch over and over. And it didn't really seem to bother them. I know that's a small thing, but just was something that made it kind of seem like maybe they just have a lot of confidence going into this week. And I think that's a big thing in the playoffs, like you've seen with the Giants going into the playoffs 2 years against the Patriots. And each time they come out as a Super Bowl champion. So that's kind of just the way I'm seeing it, is maybe Dallas can go on a little run here. But I definitely think the 49ers defense is generationally good. Generationally great is like, I don't think you can undermine just how good Fred Warner is and how he's been so good at just controlling that defense. Like when they drop him into like a 4-1 set and he's controlling the entire of the field, I don't know if I've seen that since like Luke Kuechly, or at least the way he does it. So I'm going to go with I'm going with Dallas Cowboys here, but don't be surprised if the 49ers do take the points and run away with this one too. So,
yeah, I got to go 49ers. I think if you look at everything except quarterbacks, so the supporting cast, they have the best roster in the league for that. They have the most help surrounding their quarterback, so it really doesn't matter who's playing quarterback for them. They're going to win. They've won with, really only 2 quarterbacks this year because they lost the one game that Lance was in, but he got hurt. But they've won. They can win with whoever's at quarterback for them. The roster is just that good. It's just that much better than the Cowboys. Pretty much everywhere except quarterback and running back. I'd lean Cowboys, but overall, I think the Niners run away with it.
You think Pollard's better than McCaffrey?
I think the room is better in
I
Dallas.
agree.
Yeah. No, McCaffrey's easily better than Pollard, but the room in Dallas, because you have Zeke there too. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
Can't forget Elijah Mitchell too. After a little bit.
Oh yeah, Elijah Mitchell is good too.
Well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
those are 2 of the better running back rooms in the league.
You know how Shanahan is, though. He keeps like 4 or 5 guys,
Shanahan.
and then
Shanahan can use whoever he wants. I think that he's had a different leading rusher each year he's been their head coach.
Yeah, I mean, he'll make JaMychal Hasty look like an all-pro. So
yeah,
I'm not really surprised.
They can pad the stats, make them look like all-pros, trade them away. They look okay elsewhere, and they just have another dude fill in. So it doesn't matter who's playing running back for the Niners. They're going to have success there. But I think overall, as a running back room, if you have with the 1-2 punch of Zeke and Pollard, it's better than just McCaffrey. And then, of course, why am I blanking on his name? Who's the
Elijah Mitchell.
we just said? Yeah, Elijah Mitchell. Thank you. He's very good too. But I think that Pollard and Zeke are better than him.
Yeah, I think look for the offensive line matchups this week. I think we're seeing two of the best offensive lines in football, and I know they were definitely highlighting that in the Bucs game for the Cowboys. Definitely some older guys there with like Smith and Peters and the Zach Martin. I think we're seeing some of those guys definitely age, but they've still been pretty consistent, pretty good. So I don't know. We'll have to see.
Hey guys, I've got to leave. So thanks
sure.
for having me.
Yeah, man.
All right, go Bills.
Go Bill. Nice talking to you, man.
See ya.
Have a good one. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see how that Cowboys line can hold up with that 49ers front in the same way around too, because that Dallas front is pretty good too.
I know. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I'm not really sure which way it's going to lean. I think you're going to see both sides get the best of each other a couple times, but honestly, I think it'll just be good football.
Yeah, I think Bosa will get in the backfield a couple times
For sure.
in that game, chase Dak around. But same could happen to Purdy with whoever they want coming out of there, because it really just matters where they put Micah at on a single play, because it'll be Micah if he's off the edge. If not,
so Micah and then Lawrence?
Lawrence, yeah. And then they have who else? Yeah. What's their other? Because Micah plays everywhere, so I'm trying to think who their other guy is. They usually send off the edge when Micah's not.
Who is that?
Am I wrong with Lawrence? Who's their stud guy? The guy I'm blanking, but
yeah,
DeMarcus Lawrence is I'm thinking of the other one besides him, because Micah isn't always off the edge. They have another like solid one. I just cannot remember who.
Oh, is it it's not Malcolm Floyd.
No.
I'm gonna have to look this up.
I'm not sure. I know who you're talking about though. It's like one of those dudes that like fly under the radar, but he's super tough.
It seems like a lot of their defense is like that.
Yeah, it's not Vander Esch or Anthony Barr is one of those guys.
Anthony Barr may be one of those guys too. I know that was a sneaky pickup for them in the offseason.
Trying to look in there. Dante Fowler.
Dante Fowler is.
That's what I was thinking, because it was one of those guys from the old Rams teams.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. And I was thinking of Leonard Floyd, not Malcolm.
Yeah. Anytime you can have Dante Fowler is one of those guys that like if you're not expecting him to be the guy, he'll give you production. Like look what he did next to Aaron Donald. Like so you put him on the obviously anyone above average is gonna look really good next to Aaron Donald, but you put him on the same team as DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons in that front, he's gonna look good still.
Yeah.
Speaking of this, from Mac's point of view, you were just talking about with Brock Purdy. When he and I were talking last night, he kind of felt like Brock Purdy was kind of due for a bad game. And, certainly as we were just talking about with Dallas's defense, I'm not certain how much that Kyle Shanahan's going to be willing to give him, kind of seeing, how Jimmy Garoppolo kind of played against some of his opponents in 2019. They might revert to more of a ground game attack against Dallas, but certainly I think Brock Purdy is up to the challenge, but we will see, with 49ers at Dallas, always a amazing playoff rivalry between them for so many years, and we'll witness another chapter against them when they play on Sunday night.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it, honestly. I'm not really sure what to fully expect, but I think it'll just be it'll be a fun matchup. I think the most what we should be looking out for, just as a football fan, with no real bias, at least in my perspective, I'd just love to see Dak avoid to make those dumb mistakes we can see him make sometimes. Because Purdy's shown to make little mistakes in his play, but as long as we can just see just a game with limited turnovers, really is what I like to see more than anything, because I think that's what really makes or breaks the Cowboys at times.
Yeah, I'd like to see an entertaining game. I don't want to just see Dak turn the ball over 3 times and it be like a 4-score game going into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, that'd be super frustrating. I just don't want to see what we saw in Seattle last week or versus
I don't think that it's reasonable to expect him to do what he did last week, because that was probably the best game Dak has ever played. But if we can just get like a solid game out of Dak, then I think we have an entertaining game.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so I think now we'll probably go ahead and do it for our picks for divisional weekend here, but kind of seeing about with 15 or 20 minutes, going to probably try and get this about maybe 45 or 50 minutes in length here. But what we're going to go ahead and do actually is kind of similar to my broadcast here. We were going to probably switch roles here a little bit. So if you wanted to ask questions about some of the latest news or anything in the NFL ranks or college football, I'll give the floor to one of you, and we can ask questions in a debate here for a few minutes and some of the other bigger storylines.
Yeah, I mean, I'm good. I'm good with whatever. If you want to just dive into some of the NFL buzz going on with, of course, Sean Payton. That's been like a big talk of discussion or point of discussion, and then of course, like as a Panthers fan, I'm not really sure what to think about all the rumors going around. Not really sure if I even want a Sean Payton, but I don't know. I guess I'd hand the floor back to you guys because honestly, as much as I've kept up with it, I'm really a little clueless when it comes to who I think should go where. Just because it's a little tough to tell at this point in time, especially with all the games still going on and the interviews, the process is going on. I think it's a little tough to make an evaluation of what the landscape might look like or should look like.
Yeah, I believe the who's the Giants offensive coordinator? What's his name, Alex?
Yeah.
I believe he is waiting to take any interviews. I think that him and Dable have like decided that it's best for them to not do interviews while they're still in the playoffs.
Right.
And then on top of that too, Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator, has said he's going back to Detroit.
Yeah.
He's not going to take a head coaching job.
Okay. Yeah, I missed that. I saw that he was kind of a hot name on the market.
Oh yeah, he was. He would have gotten a job if he wanted one, but he went back.
Yeah, I think a name to look out for is Ken Dorsey, the Bills coordinator. It looks like I'm not really too sure, but I know Carolina's requested to talk to him, and I believe they may even this weekend before the game. Don't quote me on that, but I know he was back in Carolina with McDermott, with Cam a few years ago. So I'd like to see a familiar face come back rather than get someone from New Orleans, but we'll have to see about that.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Buccaneers fired Byron Leftwich.
That was a huge move.
Yeah, after it was pretty much either him or Bowles that was going to be their head coach last year, and Leftwich was getting head coaching looks, and a year later he's without a job.
I think we'll see him get. I think we'll see him get a role somewhere. I mean,
yeah,
obviously,
he'll get a role somewhere.
He'll get a second shot somewhere. I mean, no one goes like I was listening to Wes Bryant on WF&Z. I'm not sure if you guys are too familiar with it, but like just the Charlotte guys that speak a lot on that kind of stuff. And he was talking today about how like it's not like in 8 months that he's just become an idiot and like has forgotten how to orchestrate an offense. Like the guy's going to get another great job somewhere. Probably not a head coach, but I can imagine he'll be a coordinator for a team somewhere next year.
Yeah, like that team had a lot of injuries, and that was like the worst built team to run the ball. So like they kind of knew what to expect, and it's kind of hard to do your job the right way when they know what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned, so many times last year, especially when, I just saw the Buccaneers just struggling. I just can't believe how much Jason Licht and the Buccaneers brass have just really bought so much into Brady. And then basically right now you're throwing a curveball at the whole organization. You don't know about Brady's future, and certainly you're not wondering about what is going to happen with their future right now. So,
yeah. You got company? You're good. No, I think it's going to be interesting to see who or where the Bucs go from now on. I mean, there's the whole speculation about Brady maybe going to Las Vegas or he may go to San Francisco. It's kind of tough to tell what organization's going to end up with Brady. And I think it's even tougher to see like what organization will be willing to take him on at this point in time. I mean, Brady's still like a decent, a very viable quarterback, but after especially this performance this past weekend, I'm not really too sure anyone's gonna be drooling to pick him up, honestly, especially just with the way he's only gonna get older. And it's not really looking like he's gonna be a guy for the next 5 years. I don't know if we'll see Brady play till 50, but even if he does, I'm not really too sure that any team's gonna want to be just absolutely wanting to pick him up regardless. Maybe unless you're a team like the Raiders, who's just been completely disbanded from everything else. So I'm not really.
The Raiders are going to be without a quarterback because Carr has made it clear he is not returning.
I think both sides have made it pretty clear they will not keep going together.
Well, Carr already came out and said his farewell to the Raiders. The league year hasn't even ended yet, and he would still be under contract anyway. So
What's funny because then we saw the same thing with Jimmy G, and he said bye. So maybe we'll have to see. But I hope he doesn't take the Baker path and just end up, fading out. Because I think he is a good quarterback.
I think those two, Jimmy G and Carr, those are probably the two most likely guys to go to the Jets.
Oh yeah, definitely. I could see that.
Which I think that I think the ceiling's higher with Carr, so I think it makes more sense for them to go get Carr. But it's easier for them to get Jimmy G because you don't have to give up anything.
Right.
If they get either one of them, I think they're a playoff team next year.
For sure. And didn't the Ravens just get rid of their OC as well, or did he walk away?
I think I don't know if they officially did, but I think they're getting those rumors of it.
Yeah, I think he's voluntarily walking away, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure if it was that up. Yeah, you might have to look it up because I'm not sure it was completely a firing.
I think it was mutual. I think it was a mutual decision.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. I think I'm pretty unsure what to expect out of that organization. A really well-run organization in the Ravens. I don't think we see them just completely disband. I know we saw Harbaugh today talk about how Lamar's their guy, and I think they're really going to pay as much as they want for Lamar. So I'm interested to see. Maybe they bring in a Byron Leftwich and try to bring that offense back together. But I guess we'll have to see where that goes.
Yeah. I'm really interested to see how, certainly kind of talking about the AFC North, and as we were mentioning about with Brady's situation, I'm almost wondering if, Brady's going to go back to the Raiders to be with McDaniels again, but, certainly kind of seeing the whole Lamar Jackson situation, I just don't know if you're willing to pay him just the big bucks. I mean, I know everyone's saying, just pay the man his money, but I just don't see him taking a contract as expensive as what Deshaun Watson's was or whatever, just because injuries have just really taken down his game over the last 3 years. So I just don't know how much you're willing to invest in him if you're Baltimore.
Yeah, I think Deshaun contract would definitely be something that would be gutsy, first of all, for them to do. But I don't think that's something that the Ravens would be ready to fully invest in. We haven't really seen them do that in their franchise in a while, or ever really, to give a quarterback that type of money. So I don't predict that, but I do predict that they will convince Lamar to stay. And whatever they have to do, if it has to get rid of a few guys that are turning the culture away from being a perennial playoff team, then maybe that's what they have to do. I know there were a lot of words thrown around after the game this past weekend, but I'm sure that was more just out of frustration than anything. So I would say give it a month or two in the offseason, and we'll see where that plays out.
It's going to be interesting to see with the offseason moves. Certainly, I've kind of been keeping track of some the bigger GM hires as well. Certainly with Monty Austin-Ford taking over the job for the Cardinals, replacing Steve Keim, and I saw one of his initial pressers. He kind of said ego will not be tolerated in this organization, and I think that might have rubbed Kyler Murray more than one way or another. But just that team just needs a complete overhaul with Austin-Ford right now. Just seeing Watts out the door, and Hopkins' future is interesting right now with Hopkins being on the trade block and some teams trying to maybe be in the thing with him, but that's just a massive cleanup job that Austin-Ford has going for him in Arizona right now.
Yeah, that's going to be a weird one to kind of figure out, especially with the way that we've seen Kyler kind of just change like his entire dynamic of being maybe not a humble guy, but just a guy that you can kind of rely on, a team guy, and kind of shift away from that and being a little bit more of a me guy. And none of us know Kyler, obviously, like personally, but I think that it is something to look at when it comes to just how much ego is there involved when it comes to how much you're paying him, because I think that's become a real issue for them and something that they have to look out for in the next few seasons since they've already made that commitment to him.
Just kind of keeping track of just like some of the other ones. I thought I saw there was another GM hire
Yeah, I'm looking
recently.
for that as well. And then the Chargers getting rid of Joe Lombardi. I don't know if we mentioned that yet, but
Yeah,
I think that was
mentioned
slightly
that.
inevitable after that. And Lovie Smith as well. Just another one of those things that we could have expected a little bit more than some of the others. Just quickly, I mean, Lovie Smith, I think, was given really a bad hand. Not really too sure what to think about that. I mean, he basically played their way out of the first pick and then got fired. Not really sure if it's because of that or what it could be. And then Joe Lombardi, I think that's just something where we're seeing the head coach stay and trying to revitalize with an offensive coordinator. Not really too sure what to think of all that, but I think the Chargers offense has so much potential where we're not really too sure what we're getting out of that offense with that type of coordinator. Hopefully they can figure that out because I'd really like to see the Chargers at full speed. But I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah,
I think that Frank Reich could be a solid hire there.
Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, working with Herbert, I certainly agree.
Give him a little bit less on his plate than he had in Indianapolis. And he's held the position before. He's been the Chargers offensive coordinator before.
true.
He has.
Yeah,
So
I think
certainly
that's a good move.
yeah, it could be a solid move. He needs a bounce back role somewhere, and I think that's a good spot for him. He has that's pretty much what he thought he was going to get in Indianapolis with Andrew Luck is what he's going to have in Herbert there. So
yeah,
kind of drifting really quick into the Lovie Smith thing before we kind of wrap things up here. Certainly I have just been a horrible advocate of how Nick Caserio and the McNairs have basically just dumped this team just for so many years. Certainly seeing the way they treated David Coley, and now it's Lovie Smith, and certainly I've been hearing just everything that kind of happened with Deshaun Watson and Hopkins calling out Jack Easterby and everybody there. I mean, just that team just has to hit the reset button right now. I mean, I think, if you want to add also a quarterback in the free agent market, if they're just willing to dump him, I still believe in Davis Mills right now. I think if they release him or if they get him into free agency, I think, he could deserve a second chance somewhere. But Houston is just, I have just been a horrible advocate of what's happened with, that organization, and they just need to just really figure out the right mindset if they're going to contend right now, because right now Jacksonville looks like the clear front runner in that division right now. Tennessee's certainly hitting the reset button right now with that future up in the air, and certainly who knows how Indianapolis goes with the draft. Kind of one of my latest things that I saw was them trading up to get the number 1 pick using that pick, but I'm just not sure if how much they would be willing to bill if that's going to happen with Chris Ballard and those guys.
Yeah,
I think it helps
go
them that C.J. Stroud officially declared after some speculation that he would maybe return. So it's a lot more hope that they can get their guy, because now there's those 2 at the top, and then maybe if you like Will Levis, there's a third one up there, which I don't. So I don't think that should be an option. But there is Stroud and Young that you have the option of taking rather than just Young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, I just have another minute here before I'm probably about to head out. But just some last words. I mean, yeah, I agree. I think we're going to see the Colts move in a new direction for sure. I know they just interviewed Jeff Saturday again today.
Don't hire him.
Yeah, I know. And I'm about to say, like, I don't really know what they're expecting. I'm guess that's more out of just respect for the man he is more than the coach he's been. Maybe we see Irsay bring him back, maybe not.
I'm gonna lose it. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
I
lose
don't
it if
think
they bring him back.
I'm not the one to say that he's the wrong or right hire, but it definitely didn't look like the right one last year. So I guess we'll have to see where they go with that, because I'm not really too sure that he can be a guy anywhere, just with the way that he's never had that experience of being a head football coach, regardless of his football knowledge. But with that being said, he did have half a season as an interim coach, so we don't know. But I just would like to see the Colts get back on track to where they've been in the past, especially with all the.
I'd give Saturday an offensive line coaching position every day of the week. I'd give that to him. Head coach, no, he should not be doing that.
He'd look for a decent sized contract just to be a line coach, because I think that might just be like the best line coach you could get in all of football.
I mean, the Colts already have Reggie Wayne as the receivers coach, so why not bring back another former player to coach his position group?
That'd be awesome. Yeah, they bring back like Mathis to be a DN coach.
Oh, I'd bring back. I believe he consults with the team already as is. So he's not officially a coach, but
Irsay's like all about that. You know, like how Pat McAfee always talks about how they like just talk all the time, and I think he's like one of those.
Irsay's really close with former players.
Yeah, and I think that's been like the biggest thing with like just kind of keeping it all in house. So I think it's a well-run organization, but I think like some of the decision making can be like a little weird at times.
Yeah,
but
when it gets out of hand and Irsay has to step in, it looks bad.
Yeah.
Like with what happened, he had to step in to get Wentz out last year. He stepped in and just said, "Hey, Saturday's our coach for the rest of the year." Didn't even have a process at all of looking into people on the staff already. When he steps in, it doesn't look good.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna head out, but I appreciate you guys having me with you guys tonight, and it's always a good time talking ball. So hopefully we'll see some good games this weekend. Honestly, I'm just hoping for no wilds. I just don't want to see what we saw on Monday. Honestly, that was like sad to watch. No. But yeah, I appreciate it. So I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys soon enough.
Have a good night, Griff. All right.
You guys.
Yeah, I'm probably going to try and wrap this up early here, especially tonight. Last night I only went for about an hour, but, just kind of as we kind of discussed before the broadcast as well, kind of just seeing some of the bigger news, kind of like in college basketball or college football. We were just kind of briefly discussing about this here. The other day I was reading like some of the early AP top 25 polls for some of the teams that they finished for last year. I think they had like TCU like ranked as like the number 8 team going into next year. They didn't even rank them in the top 5, and obviously because with Duggan and everybody else leaving, but certainly just Sunny.
I think they just overperformed this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're losing their probably 2 best players with Quentin Johnston and Max Duggan. So I think that you should not expect them to make the playoffs next year. What I think should be interesting next year, though, is their first game is against Coach Prime in Colorado. That should be interesting. I think they blow them out, though. I think Colorado's they're going to be excited that they have Deion Sanders as their coach, but that is not going to go well in the first year.
Yeah, just kind of seeing how somehow sort of the college basketball ranks were right now. Last time we met, we were kind of talking about how the Georgia Bulldogs are stacking up right now. Georgia is still kind of in that SEC rank right now at 13-5, but certainly
they just lost to Kentucky the other day. It was they had like I think they were up 11 at one point. They were up like 7 or 8 at halftime, and then Kentucky just didn't miss like at all in the second half, and they ended up winning by like 14.
I just kind of want someone to unseat John Calipari and those guys this year. Hopefully it's going to be
Alabama's doing it right now in the SEC. Alabama is very good.
Even though that was kind of sad to hear about that one player they had, Darius Miles, being charged with murder. That was, a bit of a concerning news story that Alabama came across there. But when I recently checked the rankings, I was like saying like Alabama was ranked at as one of the 4 number 1 seeds in like the latest.
I think they'll move up in the next AP poll because Kansas just lost to Kansas State.
Yeah, that was a shocker when I saw that one last night.
An overtime game. That was a good game too. I got to watch I watched the end of it because I turned on ESPN to watch the Georgia game, and it wasn't on yet. They were showing the Kansas game, and it was still like I watched like the last 3 minutes of the fourth quarter and then overtime, and that was a very good game.
Yeah, I just got to catch up on college basketball myself. I'm hoping tonight there will be a good game on CBS Sports or something that I can try and kind of sink my self into this. But what was the one thing I was just looking up a second ago? I was just kind of looking at the transfer portal over the last couple of days. Not so much, bigger news or anything, but certainly some of the quarterback maneuvers are kind of still going all across right now. One of the recent ones that I saw was Walker Howard transfer from LSU to Ole Miss between those two schools when I saw that one.
And what was that? I was gonna bring one up and I just blanked on it. I don't think it was a quarterback. I'm trying to remember who I was about to bring up. I cannot even remember now. Wow, that's gonna bother me.
What was it? Was it a Georgia guy or was it?
Well, Georgia's had a bunch of guys into the portal now because
Yeah.
their season's officially over, but I cannot remember who I was going to bring up. I'm blanking on that now, and that's bothering me.
I've seen kind of some of the bigger ones. I saw this one guy, defensive lineman Jordan Burke, transferring from South Carolina to Oregon, kind of one of their.
Yeah, that was Jordan Birch was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school.
Yeah.
And I believe when Georgia was recruiting him, it was Dan Lanning that was recruiting him. So that does make sense to go to Oregon because that's where Dan Lanning is now. So maybe he had a good relationship with Dan Lanning through his recruitment and wanted to play for him after South Carolina didn't work out for him.
That's going to be a nice move for Oregon to replenish that defense. I'm just kind of like right before Griff left, I was almost just wanting to say to him, as much as, fun it's been, covering college football this year between, what it was for last year, I'm just so psyched to start either creating my own mock drafts or like once the draft even takes place, just writing my own draft grades and looking up these guys' careers as I did last year. I mean, this is just going to be an insane offseason for both the NFL and college football.
Yeah, I can't wait for the draft. So I have hope with my team when we actually have a direction for the franchise. Get a quarterback. Please get CJ Stroud.
I know. I just think the one thing I just have about with Ohio State, I don't know why I constantly say this, but I just don't know how they just have never had a great trajectory of quarterbacks in the draft. Kind of like, recently, of course, Dwayne Haskins, obviously, but they just, have never been a dominant school to kind of measure for quarterbacks. And one of the things that I was even looking up recently, just the other day, when we were kind of talking about some of the news with the whole Aaron Rodgers situation kind of playing out in Green Bay, everyone's talking about if Jordan Love should be, the starter for Green Bay for next year, no matter what happens with that team. But I was looking up Jordan Love's stature, and certainly Utah State. That's just another school that's just not been prided on quarterbacks either. So I mean, just you sometimes you just got to go by a school's reputation if they are able to develop strong talent or not.
Yeah, I mean, but I don't think it typically matters because each player is a different player. Like, and it's like you can look in the past. It's like, oh, these Ohio State quarterbacks haven't worked out, but Justin Fields looks like he's working out right now. So why can't a future one work out? I think it's scouting by helmets. I think is just a dumb thing to do, especially whenever you're bringing it up like so long ago with it. Like the only quarterback that has spent his whole career, or not his whole career, all the years he started at Ohio State when Ryan Day was there and been drafted was Day was there for Haskins, right?
I think so.
I think
for just 1 year.
So yeah, for just 1 year, but I don't know if that was his. I think it was his only year starting though. So it's just Haskins and Fields, but Haskins was a 1 year starter. So Stroud is really just the second quarterback that Day has had come out that was a multi-year starter under him. So I don't think it's smart to compare them to previous ones that were under a different head coach.
Right. Certainly I'm just thinking, Stroud, I think, has just got incredible potential, but, certainly I just think, as far as Indianapolis goes, they need to just kind of really just shore up that offensive line, as you mentioned as well. I mean, when I was writing the draft grades last year for Indianapolis, especially that one offensive lineman they drafted, that Bernhard Raimann. I mean,
Bernhard Raimann, yeah.
I did not expect him to look as bad as he looked for Indianapolis this year. And, knowing that they kind of really took a chance on him, because I was reading something on him. He grew up in Austria, I think, and was like one of the first special team. It was like the first non-specialist to play in the NFL from Austria since like way back in the 1960s. The Giants had like an offensive lineman who only spent like a year or two with them, but Ryman was like one of the first non-specialists to not play on the special teams to be a starter on the offensive line. I mean, that was a kind of a risky decision to draft him last year when they selected him in the 3rd round.
Yeah, I mean, he had like projections and like hype that he was going to go higher than that, and I think he's just kind of raw. He got a little bit better throughout the year, like as the year went on. So there's some hope there. But like as for your left tackle, I think you'd want a better player there, especially if you're looking to draft the future of your franchise at quarterback in this draft. But maybe he can just take like an incredible leap and just be really good next year.
So we're kind of nearing close to an hour here on episode 4. I was just kind of trying to think in our heads right now if there was anything we hadn't covered. I think we covered most of the big storylines in the NFL, and I just kind of drawing a blank on everything else.
Yeah, I think that's most of the main stuff. That I can't really think of anything in any other major sports right now.
I was just kind of trying to possibly update from where college basketball is right now. There was we were just talking about before with before the broadcast how the Charleston Cougars were last time I checked. So Charleston's up 49-44 in the CAA right now. So they're 19-1. They could be 20-1, winners of 19 in a row for them right now. And I think what we're going to do is actually we're going to go ahead and probably close this out here tonight for episode 4 of the All Pro Sports Podcast. Of course, I'd like to thank Griff Barlow and Ben Adams, who joined us here earlier for our broadcast. But Billy, I'll let you have the last word before we close out for the night.
Okay, yeah. Last word. I know we had briefly talked about it earlier before, but just prayers to not in this before, along with the two Georgia, the staffer and the player there, but also Anton Walks, the Charlotte FC player, and his family. Anton Walks passed away this morning in a boating accident. So prayers to his family too.
Certainly, our thoughts and prayers are with everybody there that you just named as well. But we'd like to thank you all for joining us here on episode 4 of our All Pro Sports Podcast here tonight. Certainly, next week we will have another episode for episode 5 with some of our other co-hosts on our All Pro Sports Podcast team. So this is Alex Kristen, Billy McGee signing off here tonight, and we hope everybody has a good night out there all across America. Have a good night, everybody.